The Rolex 24-hour of Daytona started its life as a 3-hour enduro called the Daytona Continental. And the hours and miles kept getting longer and longer up until 1966 when they matched the 24-hour Le Mans. And the first winners of that race are Ken Miles and Lloyd Ruby in the Ford GT40, which is reenacted in the Ford vs. Ferrari movie. Some of you might hear Daytona and think NASCAR, and that's pretty reasonable. But when IMSA comes to town, they take that oval track, expand it into the infield, and give it some extra twists and turns. And this has been pretty standard since 1966. Normally, I would be pretty critical about how simple this track is. However, it is always the first track on the calendar, and with changes and regulations happening pretty regularly, it's pretty good to have that place to test out your new car. Since the race is 24 hours long, it gives teams and drivers the ability to test out the reliability of the vehicle.
I didn't expect to get to 4 hours with so little dramas.
It also has high-speed straights and turns so that they can test the aero, and also low-speed sections so that they can test the mechanical grip as well. Even though the track is simplistic, the drivers still covet this as a track to win on. From 1966 to 1972, the 24 Hours of Daytona was gaining a great amount of popularity, including attracting high-profile Formula One drivers. Despite its popularity, Daytona and the 12 Hours of Sebring were coming into some dire straits. And in 1972, the organizers at Daytona had to close down the Daytona Continental. And in 1973, got picked up by IMSA. And this is the part of the video where I tell you some obscure facts about Daytona. Between 1962 and 1966, there were 4 variations of the Daytona Continental. And Ferrari is the only one to win all 4 of those configurations. And that makes sense because in the late 50s and early 60s, Ferrari was really on the top of their game when it comes to endurance racing.
And the Ferraris, victory for the 6th time running.
If you're not familiar with the Triple Crown, it's when a driver wins 3 races. It is Monaco Grand Prix, the Indy 500, and the 24-hour of Le Mans. Did you know that endurance racing has its own Triple Crown? Obviously, 3 more races, the 24-hour Le Mans, 12 Hours of Sebring, and obviously, the Daytona 24 Hours. Which I think is pretty intriguing because between 12 Hours of Sebring and the 24 Hours of Daytona, one of those could have easily been replaced by the 24 Hours at Nürburgring. I mean, that place is legendary. When the winners get up to the podium, they don't only just get a trophy, they also get a specially engraved Rolex watch, which makes sense because it is called the Rolex 24. Well, you might be thinking, how did a watch company become the title sponsor of an entire endurance race? Well, the simple answer, money. The less simple answer is watches. Back in the 50s and 60s, they didn't have digital timekeeping like they do now. What they had was, you guessed it, mechanical stopwatches. And since Rolex took pride in the precision timekeeping they had, they thought, well, you know what? This makes a lot of sense for us to partner up. So Rolex has been providing stopwatches, and the 24-hour Daytona slapped their names on the wall. If you're still here, thank you for being here, and consider hitting that subscribe button right here that is actually down here so that you don't miss out on any endurance racing or IMSA news.